officer going on 14 years. So I was at East Valley for about 12 years. Middle schoolers for 12 years. So before that, I was on patrol. I also worked some narcotics investigations. So I've been an officer for almost 17 years. And this, I didn't really think about online safety, cell phone safety when I was on patrol, because back then, 2006, 2007, cell phones, smartphones were just coming in. And there wasn't that much on there. You could take a really pixelated picture of yourself and text message, but that was about it. In about 2012, 2 years after I became a school resource officer, is when smartphones really starting to become advanced. And we saw kids becoming more and more addicted to cell phones because you could get the internet on cell phones now, and you could text and you could send pictures and videos, and it just kind of snowballed, because technology, that's what it does, right? Is it continues to advance and become better, but also I didn't grow up with it, so I wasn't ready for the technology and able to keep up with it. I had to do a lot of learning, especially when parents came to me with issues. So I can't really take a lot of credit for this presentation. A fellow officer from Canyon County Sheriff's Office, he works what's called Internet Crimes Against Children's Crimes. He's a detective, and he works with the Attorney General's office in those. So it's a full-time job. This is from him. I've kind of deleted stuff to really hit home on what Gina wanted me to present. So just some numbers to begin with. In January 2022, there were almost 8 billion people in the entire world. There were almost over 5 billion unique mobile phone users. So that means a phone. I have two phones, right? I have a work phone and I have a personal phone. So that's two cell phones I have just to myself. And then if you look at the active social media users, it's up there too, right? So we have 8 billion almost, and over half of them are on social media. So these are the world's most used social media platforms. 4 out of the top 17 are owned by Facebook, are owned by Meta. So you have Facebook is the number one, and almost 3 billion people are on Facebook in the world. So if you just look at the numbers, there are so many people that are using social media platforms right now, currently. United States, our total population is a little over 330 million. And there are more mobile connections than there are people living in the United States. So that means, right, I have 2. I'm sure a lot of you have more than one, right, mobile device. And that includes iPads, laptops, all that connect to internet, social media. These are the most visited websites. If you guys read that, can you see any educational websites on there? Google is number 1. And then going down, we have 3 search engines, 2 shopping sites. We also have 3 adult sites up there. Also, disclaimer, guys, since there are kids in here, I'm going to be using words like pornography, sex, extortion, nudes, all that, just to warn you. These are uncomfortable conversations that you have to have with your kids if you're going to get them a cell phone. Let's start with something simple, just text messaging. Why is this such a risk? Because it's unprotected, right? So any text message you send has information attached to it. Any picture you send has information attached to it, right? Any comment on social media has information attached to it. So this opens up a whole new world to your kids. So especially social media, a lot of kids don't know who they're talking to. The kids today, when I talk to kids about who's on their Instagram, well, they're all my friends. Well, how many have you met in person, right? And a lot of kids like, oh, I don't know him. I have never met him in person. So they open themselves up to predators, sextortionists, stalkers, and then also like malware attacks. I don't know if you've gotten those really weird text messages like, hey, how are you doing tonight? Right? And it's from a cell phone number that you don't even recognize. That could be somebody fishing for data. So if you respond, they have your information. It was interesting when I was reading through this, because a lot of the Facebook executives were saying that this is all designed, the social media, the websites are all designed for your psychology, for addiction, right? So oh gosh, I just forgot it. The ads that pop up when you're on Facebook, right? That's all your interest. It keeps you on Facebook longer. On Instagram, the same thing. So, and we always want to know, we do the same thing. This is not just kids that are doing it. I find myself going down the rabbit hole of Facebook and Instagram, right? Seeing what people are doing, right? And liking that. And you get that dopamine effect when somebody likes your post, like, oh, how many likes do I have? Even as a 45-year-old, I still get that, okay? Just imagine kids that aren't developed, right? Physically and physiologically and mentally yet. That's what they live and die by. That's their popularity now. In school, it was how many friends do you have in your circle? Now it's how many likes, how many people follow you. And I have students that show me their Instagram that have 2,000 people following them. Does a 15-year-old know 2,000 people? No. And I want another disclaimer. I don't want to tell you guys how to parent, that you guys are bad parents, any of that. I've made mistakes. I have 2-step kids that are now adults. And I live and breathe this stuff, and I still made mistakes. I still trusted my kids. And I came to figure out that I probably shouldn't have done that. And they were good kids overall. So question, how many texts does an average teen send a day? Anybody know that answer? A wild guess? Just a text message. 5. Oh, you're so good.
I'm guessing 1,000.
1,000 texts a day? Seems like a lot.
100.
So 63% are sending messages every day, average 60 messages a day. And this is just text messages, guys. Girls are more chatty, so they send about 100. And boys send about 50 text messages a day. And I'm gonna group in DMs, like direct messages, snaps, all of that, right? So if you do that, they're on their phones about 7 to 9 hours a day doing this stuff. Holding conversations with people they know and people they don't know. So with the advancement of technology, what we as SROs and what we as parents, what I as a parent, and what I have talked to parents about are sending pics, sending nudes, sexting, right? So that became a thing probably in like the mid 2013, 14, when I started seeing cases of my daughter sent a nude. What can you do about it? So these were all things that we had to consider, like, I don't know. And it was a very rare thing when it started. Now I ask kids if they've ever sent a nude or if they know somebody who sent a nude. And about 80% will say, yep, at least I know somebody that has. Because it's super easy and accessible to do. They can do it in the bathroom at the school, you know, topless photo, quick crotch shot, whatever. And this one is super important, not physically knowing our friends. My coworker at Lone Star had a case where she sent a nude to her boyfriend who they never met in person. And that boyfriend sent that picture out to friends, right? But this girl and this boy have never met in person. And what she told my coworker was, well, this is how we date now. So they meet each other online, they become boyfriend and girlfriend, and it's a virtual relationship. But what they don't understand is somebody on the other end of that phone, that computer, could be an adult. And again, engaging strangers on various platforms. Do you guys know what apps your kids have on your phones, on their phones? And if you do you go through them? Do you see who they're chatting to? Do you see how long they're on those apps? Because this is one thing I started doing when I started doing cell phone investigations when my stepkids were growing up, is they knew that anytime we would take their phone and look through it. And they had to be willing and ready to answer questions that we had about messages, conversations, pictures that had magically disappeared in a chat. Those were hard conversations to have. And I'll come back to that. Unrestricted access. We can look up anything, anytime we want. All the porn sites are free now. Remember when we were growing up, like, I didn't do this. I don't think any of you guys did this, but the dads that had the Playboys stuffed under the mattress, right? That's where you had to go to see those pictures. Now they're readily accessible. And now they're doing deep fake porn with the AI. And I'll get more into that. Giving out too much personal information. I could probably hit up one of your kids on social media because I have undercover accounts. I have an undercover Instagram account, Snapchat account, and Facebook account. And I'm following a lot of kids. And they don't ask questions about who I am or anything. So I could probably have a conversation with any one of those kids, and in less than 5 minutes, I could figure out how old they are, where they live, where they go to school, and who their friends are. Super easily. Because the kids put their lives on social media. They put who they hang out with, what they're doing, where they're at, all the time. That's how they live. That's how they show other people their lives. So here's a little video that I wanted to show you guys. Remember, everything you send has information attached to it. Location, where that picture was taken, where you're at that time.
Hi, I'm Jack Vale, and I wanted to see how easy it would be to get personal information from complete strangers. And while I'm at it, of course, freak them out a little bit. Keep in mind when you watch this video, I got all of this information just by searching their personal social media posts. And I got it by searching for the closest Twitter, Instagram, and other social media posts to my current location. Let's go. Sorry to bother you. Is your name Jessica?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Jack.
Hi.
Hi, nice to meet you. How are you?
Good. What's my name?
Ashley. Whenever it comes to me and I know who it is, I know it's weird, but I have to shout it out to see if I'm right, and in that case, I was right, so.
What the f*** Wait a minute.
Are you Stephanie?
How do you know?
How you doing? I'm Jack.
Did you just make that up when you said that?
No, Elena, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I was just gonna say happy birthday. Someone in your family is referred to as Pops. Is it like a dad or a grandpa or something?
You're freaking me out right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you too, because I know you were actually, I should have said it to you because you're even before hers, but anyway, well, it's been like 7 weeks now or something like that, but anyway, good to see you guys. See you later. Like a little white curly dog, sort of like a little white dog.
Stop it. You look.
Right, everything's on there. Have you guys been on Snapchat before? The Snap Maps?
Yeah.
Right, if you have your location on, it shows, I've actually located kids in investigations going on their Snap Map down to the house, down to the exact house where they're at. This is a big one, right? Bullying, cyberbullying. It's become like a catch-all for everything, right? So what's the difference? So when we were growing up, right, it was called like growing up in the school of hard knocks, hazing, right, bullying. You gave each other a hard time, right? The problem is, or not the problem, I guess the positive thing was when we left school, right, we didn't have to deal with that. Because there was no way for that person or those people or you to be able to communicate. Now it's 24/7, 365, because they never get away from it. And what we see here at school is something starts on social media and it bleeds over into the school. And I've seen posts that kids are on their phone at 4:30 in the morning going back and forth, calling each other some horrible names. And then it bleeds into the school and the school doesn't know anything about it. And then all of a sudden we have a conflict. And then we have to deal with that conflict here to keep the peace. But kids never get a break. And the one thing that parents say, well, they've been at this for like a month. How come you didn't know? Because they don't tell anybody. Only when it comes to that boiling point do we find out, right? Or you guys find out. When it gets so bad that they finally just have to tell because they're forced to. So obviously we always have numbers with this, but 95% of teens have access to a smartphone, right? So that means 95% of teens are subject to this. Not everybody gets cyberbullied, not everybody gets bullied, but we have a lot of kids, and I like to call them pissing matches, right? It's not bullying, but it's like this conversation, this aggressiveness to each other, because everybody can be tough over a phone screen, right? But if you had to say it face to face, there's no way they would say 90% of what they say over a phone. So reports of online exploitation, and this means like sex exploitation, increased 97%. And the average age at which a child gets a cell phone is 10 years old. My stepdaughter was 8. I didn't like that, but again, I didn't have any control over that. Do you think an 8-year-old really can handle a smartphone? Do they have that capability? So these are when the tougher conversations come in about cyberbullying. You really have to have those conversations. If they see something that's meant to hurt somebody, don't like it, don't comment on it, ignore it, report it, do whatever you can to prevent that. It's okay not to like somebody, and this is what we're teaching kids, right? It's okay not to like that person. You don't have to be friends with everybody. But it's not okay to bully him or be mean to him. Be kind, be respectful. You don't have to be friends with them. If somebody cyberbullies you, don't say anything back. And this is what happens, is the pissing match begins, right? And then the anger and the aggression, and then the bleed over happens. And then just be a good digital citizen, right? Post nice comments, post decent pictures, report harassment.
I can't stop thinking about you. I know you've been waiting for this for a while. I wanted to give you something special. Who are you? Why are you doing this?
So guys, that the screenshot of the predators files, that's real. I've seen those when we arrest, predators that get child porn. They have them in all kinds of folders. And they're out there. They're out there. In fact, on my undercover account on Instagram, I was hit up. This was a week ago, actually. I was just in my office doing some paperwork, and I had my Instagram up, and I saw this guy want to add me. He didn't have very many followers. Looked at him. I'm like, all right, we'll add him. He hit me up right away, looking for a hookup. I'm like, really? I'm 15. That's what I said, right? Because as law enforcement, we have rules to play by, right? So I have to tell him my age right away. So he knows that he can't deny that I didn't tell him my age. So I said I was 15. He's like, really? I'm 40. I'm like, cool. He's like, you're okay with that? I'm like, yeah. So where you live? He told me. He's like, where do you live? Nampa. He's like, oh, so we're close. Now I could have drugged that on, right? And it's a full-time job, guys. I've done this, right? Where I have conversations and these guys send me pictures, they send me videos, and then we plan a meetup, and it takes a lot of time and effort as law enforcement to do it by the rules. But I've had people trip down from Lewiston to meet me as a 14-year-old. And it took me 2 hours. And then 3 days to set up the meet. So they're out there. I'm just glad it was me and not my stepdaughter at the time, right? I'm glad it was me as a law enforcement officer instead of one of your kids. So what we really have to pound into kids' heads, when you send a photo to somebody, you no longer own that photo. It's out there forever. You no longer own the photo when you post on social media because they can screenshot that, they can capture it, they can save it. This also goes for nudes, right? Again, I've dealt with 3 students in the last month that have been sextorted, right? That's a new term now, sextortion, where there's a grooming process. It could be a teenage boy, it could be a 45-year-old male, or a 50-year-old woman, right? Where they start grooming this person. And a lot of boys do this, right? Because these people pose as really cute girls, right? And they'll give them a nude, and it's probably on like a stock photo, right? And then, well, I sent you, now you send me one. So then the boys, I knew teenage boys, right? I grew up with teenage boys. I know what they have on their mind. So they send them one. And now that predator, that sextortionist has a nude. And they're like, oh, well, give me $500 and I won't post this. Or send me another nude and I won't post it. So this is where we go down the rabbit hole of sextortion. And I've dealt with 3 incidents of this in the last month. So these are all this is the state code. They're all under the same code, 18-1507. This is what we deal with, especially in ICAC or Internet Crimes Against Children. This code right here is new. 2016, the Idaho legislature added this code because we as school resource officers and juvenile detectives were seeing a plethora, like a huge uptick of kids sending nudes, right? Like sexting, sending nudes. And we didn't have something that would fit it. All of these are felonies, right? We didn't want to charge kids with felonies if it needed to be charged. So this code brought it as the first offense. If they sent nudes to each other, it would be a misdemeanor. Any other subsequent charge or incident that we charged would be a felony. There's also a subsection in there of if the person receives the nudes and then just disperses it, right? There's another subsection in there that we can do that. And it's all geared toward juveniles, minors. Because we want to teach, we want to educate. We don't necessarily want to throw the book at them unless they show a pattern of behavior that needs to have some consequences to it. So these are some older stats. Between 2013 and 2016, there were over 1,400 reports of sextortion to NCMEC. NCMEC is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. So they get reports of this. And then the ages of the children victims range from 8 to 17 years old. Why sextortion? Because child porn is becoming old. They need new material. So they're hitting up kids to get new material, to sell, to post, to trade. That's what they do. They trade. And they'll buy and sell it between each other with crypto, so it's not traceable. Also, scam. There's a lot of like Nigerian scams that just a random DM in Instagram or Snap because your kid has added somebody to Snap that they don't know, and they hit them up, start grooming them, get a nude, and then start extorting them. Or like the ones I get, They want to meet up in person. So guys, I have 3 Instagram profiles. Which one is the fake? Can you tell? One is a student. One is probably a fake, and the other one is definitely a fake. Can anybody tell which one the fake is? This one? This is probably a fake. And this is one that we were dealing with a student that actually sent a nude to this profile because it was her boyfriend that she had never met before, right? This one is a student. And that's a low number, 1,200 followers, that's a low number. But she's an underclassman. So she's 14, 15 years old. And I follow her on my UC account, and it's a public profile. So why have online exploitations of children increased over 97% in the last 3-4 years? What do you think, guys? That's almost 100% increase. Any ideas? We were stuck behind a computer for a year, right? We used computers and cell phones as entertainment. And this is what kids were doing behind their closed doors, right? Talking to people, socializing. Who's the largest producer of child porn? Any ideas? Kids themselves. But they don't know it, not knowingly. Some of them do. We'll talk about OnlyFans and TikTok and all that good stuff too. And Omegle. The youngest kid I've heard of that did this is 11. That's not young. The detective that gave me this, it was 5. So guys, this is where hard, uncomfortable conversations come, right? You're gonna have to talk about sex. You're gonna have to talk about porn. You're gonna have to talk about online predators. You're really gonna have to ask your kids, do you know who you're talking to? Why do you have 1,000 followers? Do you know all 1,000 followers? Do they know or do they care how to report, flag, or block people, websites? And do they have somebody to talk to if they received a really weird request? Would they feel comfortable talking to you guys? My kids wouldn't because I'm a cop, right? Like my own kids wouldn't. And we talked openly about it, and it's super uncomfortable. Super uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable for my husband, right? But these are the hard conversations. If your kid is gonna have to have a cell phone, these are the conversations you have to have. Educate yourself. Do your kids have 1 or 5 Instagram accounts? And if they do, how can you tell? How many Snap accounts do they have? Do they have an account on TikTok? Do they have a spam account? Do they have a Threads account? Right? Do they have other chat accounts, right? Right here, it'll be uncomfortable. It will be super, super uncomfortable. You have to be really open and honest. How many social media apps are out there? And this is crazy. I didn't even know this. And I thought I was educated. How many do you think? How many?
50.
20, 50? How many? Mr. Stern is closer. Right? These are social media apps. These are all downloadable. This is just the ones that I kind of know of. If they have a Snapchat account, you need to have a conversation about safety. Snapchat was made to be anonymous. Information was made to disappear. Kids buy drugs, know where parties at, buy guns on Snapchat, right? Our juvenile violent crime has gone up in the last few years because they get everything over social media. They have access to guns and drugs. Super access, it's just to the tip of their fingers. Kik, I'd be very concerned. Kik is a chat forum. You can find anything and talk to anybody on it. I did an undercover class, and I went on Kick, and I went on into groups, and none of them were good, right? Hookups, buy drugs, you know, all kinds of stuff. And then Messenger, a lot of people use Messenger. These two, I would be super concerned. Omegle and OnlyFans. Right? Kids are making money on OnlyFans. It's harder to get on there, but we have juveniles that are making money on OnlyFans. And if you don't know what OnlyFans is, it's a pay-per-view website. So members ask a membership cost for people to view their material. Right? Omegle is an anonymous chat site. So the last time I got on Omegle, it was a few years ago. You get on, it's a blank screen, you ask, talk to a male or female. That's it. So I chatted with anonymous people, and usually what predators do, they'll go over to Snapchat, TikTok, Instagram, Messenger to talk, to groom. That's what they do, they groom. TikTok is another one. And this is an article, and I had to look it up because I was like, what is going on? Did you know that the TikTok has lives? And that people that do lives can be paid to do things, like paid for it? So what's happening is juveniles are getting on TikTok, and then a bunch of people are getting on the lives and saying, hey, 35 to take your shirt off, 20 to show me your feet, let me see your underwear. And they're getting paid into a Cash App account or a Venmo account. Parents, do you know about Eyes Only on Snapchat? Y'all know about Eyes Only? So it's a separate folder within Snapchat that's private, and it has a separate passcode to it. So we call them dump, but they're forensically extract phones with kids who have an Eyes Only folder. Nothing good is in this folder, okay? The problem is kids are smarter than us. And it has a separate passcode, so they'll like magically forget that passcode. And then they'll log on to a Snapchat account from an iPad and a friend's phone, change the passcode, and delete everything in there. So then when they magically remember their passcode, they'll give it to law enforcement. We go in there and find nothing. These I haven't seen for a very long time. It's the hidden apps, right? It's the same concept as the Eyes Only, except they're hidden items, they're hidden apps. So the calculator will look a little different, the calendar will look a little different. As parents, it's really hard to do this because you want to trust your kids. I get it. But the phones are not theirs, they're yours. You have access to those 24/7. And if you don't have the passcode, you don't have passwords to that phone is no longer accessible to them. It's not a matter of your kid is a bad kid, your kid is not trustworthy. It's because of how much risk they take getting on these apps. Also, remember, everything is attached to pics, personal photos, posts, likes, tags. So remember that, because somebody, not me as an officer, but a predator will look at that, and they're smarter than I am because they do this 24/7. They can find your kids really easily. And we did an online, so just anecdotally, raising my kids and making a lot of mistakes, right? We did a contract with my kids, right? And this one was a big one. They didn't have their devices in their room at night. The one mistake I did make was I allowed the iPad in there. I wasn't thinking, right? And so my teenage stepdaughter was messaging her boyfriend at all hours in the morning. We found out that ended really quick, okay? But 9 o'clock was cutoff time. Their phones and devices were on the counter. I bought them old school alarm clocks because that was their argument. So they had no arguments left after that. And obviously this is personal preference. You know, if you don't want to post any family personal information, or sending illicit images, man, you guys need to talk about like sending nudes and sexting. That is the the biggest right now, besides the access to guns, drugs, alcohol, parties, all that. That's really a problem for teenagers today because they don't think, right? They don't think 5 minutes in front of them. Just educate them. And then they're growing up with instant gratification because that's what cell phones are. They're instantly gratified. So if we start teaching the value of patience and bringing back boredom, because iPads and devices are great babysitters. We did it to cell phones, but it really does hinder their creativity, their imagination, their ability to, draw, do art, write, be creative. And we have to be the example. And that's hard. I have to consciously put my phone in my bedroom and not have it. My husband gets irritated because when he calls, I don't answer because it's in the bedroom. But I have to have that break from both my work and personal cell phone. I have to have it. More than what you teach. You lead by example. What you do, they learn more by that than what you say. I always tell kids, it's what you do that matters, not what comes out of your mouth, right? And just remember, we're scratching the surface, guys. Maybe going in the deep web a little bit. This, if you see the Tor browser, if you see, stuff like the Silk Road, that's concerning. That's getting into the dark web. That's a scary place. It's super accessible. Just remember, it's not the technology. Like, technology is not bad. Technology is very good. And we've come a long ways with technology. What happens is people that use it and their behavior is the things that put us at risk, that put our kids at risk. All right, stranger danger is coming back because I don't know how many kids know who they are talking to on social media or through text. And just remember, once you send something, you can never get that back, ever. And kids don't understand that. Like, once they send a picture, once they send a comment, once they send a text, you can never get that back. It's out there forever. These are just some resources for you guys if you're curious. This is the ICAC website. They have some really good resources. I'll leave it up for 2 seconds if anybody wants to take a photo of that. All of this are resources, a ton of them. NetSmarts is great for parents and teens and kids. They have a bunch of presentations, educational pamphlets on there. And then NECMEC has some good stuff too, and they partner with NetSmarts. I added this because I have a lot of parents asking me about parental control apps. This is just something, I Googled it on the Google machine, right? And this is what came up. Bark is the most popular with parents. I've heard good things about MSpy and NetNanny that you can put on their phone, and then Life's 360 is a tracking app, right? And then if you have any questions, you can definitely come talk to me, ask me questions, and I'll do my best to answer them. And if I don't know the answer, I will get the answer for you guys. Do you guys have any questions? That's a lot. Yes, sir. That's something that you don't want to get into. It's on the dark web. Yes, sir.
I actually ran into